First Contact and Desperate Alliance. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Concord fell silent as High Admiral Vexala entered. The violet-skinned Trescian's normally proud stance was bent with exhaustion, her 4 eyes bloodshot from sleepless cycles. The 5 Concord Council members watched with growing dread as she approached the central podium. "We've lost another colony," Admiral Vexala announced, her voice carrying the weight of 20,000 lives extinguished. Outpost Helix 9 sent this before all transmissions ceased. She placed a small crystalline device on the table. A hologram flickered above it. Darkness at first, then something moving within that darkness. Not a ship, not a celestial body, but something that seemed to absorb light itself, leaving only a void where stars should be. Council Elder Kimura, the eldest of the Etherian representatives, closed all 6 of his eyes in mourning. The 7th colony in 2 lunar cycles, all without warning. Not entirely without warning, Vexala corrected. Each time, the same phenomenon. Stars vanishing from scanners, communications disrupted, and then she gestured at the hologram as the darkness expanded, consuming the recording itself. "The Devourers," whispered Science Minister Lith, the name the Concord had given these entities that had appeared from the depths of unexplored space 3 cycles ago. For over 800 cycles, the Galactic Concord had known peace. 5 sentient species united under principles of cooperation and scientific advancement. Their ships were marvels of beauty and efficiency, designed for exploration and commerce, not conflict. Their 26 star systems had prospered in harmony, their defensive capabilities limited to simple shields and point defense systems sufficient for protection against space debris and the occasional pirate. "What resources remain to us?" asked Kimura, his voice trembling slightly. "Our defense fleet consists of 43 vessels," Vexala replied. "None designed for this type of threat. They are diplomatic and patrol ships, not warcraft." A young aide burst into the hall, breaking sacred council protocol. "Council members, High Admiral, something is approaching Concord space." The massive view screen on the chamber wall activated, displaying a star map. A single yellow indicator moved steadily toward the heart of Concord territory. "Is it one of them?" Kimura asked, mandibles clicking with anxiety. "No," the aide replied. "It's a ship, but unlike any vessel in our database." The display changed to show an image that caused several council members to audibly gasp. The vessel was angular, almost predatory in appearance. Matte black with red accents, it tall bristled with what could only be weapon emplacements. No Concord ship had ever been designed with such obvious martial intent. Concord vessels were elegant, with smooth curves and iridescent hulls that reflected the beauty of space itself. This craft looked built for a single purpose: war. "It's heading directly for Ethos Prime," Vexala noted, referring to the Concord's most populated world. "At its current velocity, it will arrive within 3 standard hours." "Are evacuation protocols initiated?" asked Defense Minister Torin. "There's no time," the aide responded. "The vessel is moving at speeds our fastest ships cannot match." Without warning, the mysterious ship decelerated, taking position at the edge of the Ethos system, maintaining distance. The council watched in tense silence. "They're transmitting," announced the aide with evident surprise. Using standard Concord communication frequencies, a voice filled the chamber, steady and authoritative. "This is Captain Helena Chen of the Earth Warship Prometheus. We come in peace and offer assistance. We've tracked a hostile entity to your region of space. We believe you're under attack by what we call the Void Devourers. We've encountered them before. Request permission to dock and share intelligence." Elder Kimura looked to Admiral Vexala. "Earth, is this a known world?" "No," Vexala replied. "We have no record of this species in our database." On the view screen, the dark ship waited patiently. As they observed, long-range scanners detected something else moving in the distance, a patch of absolute darkness approaching Ethos Prime. The Devourers had arrived. Elder Kimura made his decision swiftly. Grant them permission to dock. We need whatever knowledge they possess. As the transmission was sent, Science Minister Lith leaned toward Vexala. What species builds a vessel like that unless they've known conflict on a scale we cannot imagine? Vexala had no answer. The peaceful existence of the Galactic Concord was about to change irrevocably. The age of innocence had ended. The human warship had arrived, and everything was about to change. Admiral Vexala and Science Minister Lith waited in the docking bay of Ethos Station, both struggling to contain their anxiety as the airlock cycled open. Captain Helena Chen stepped through first. She appeared almost like a Tresian, except her skin was a warm brown instead of violet, and she possessed only 2 eyes. She stood taller than most Concord species, with a physique that suggested both strength and agility. 4 more humans followed, wearing dark uniforms adorned with patches displaying an unfamiliar celestial body, blue and green, partially obscured by swirling white. "Thank you for allowing us to dock," Captain Chen said with a respectful inclination of her head. Her voice carried an authority that seemed at odds with her relatively young appearance. Admiral Vexala performed the traditional Concord greeting. "You claimed knowledge of the entities we face. We would be grateful for any information you can provide." "We call them void devourers," Captain Chen replied. "They're a non-sentient cosmic organism that travels between galaxies consuming energy and matter. Earth encountered a small cluster 20 cycles ago in what you would call the Orion Spur. It took a fleet of 5 warships to neutralize them." Science Minister Lith's bioluminescent spots pulsed with alarm. "5 ships like yours? And you say that was a small cluster?" "Yes," Chen confirmed. "And based on our long-range scans, what's approaching your territories is at least 3 times larger." Admiral Vexala and Minister Lith exchanged troubled glances. If 5 human warships had barely defeated a small group, what hope did the Concord have against this larger threat? "Perhaps we should continue this discussion in the command center," Admiral Vexala suggested. As they walked through the station, the humans drew curious stares from Concord citizens. The humans moved differently, always alert, always scanning their surroundings. Even in this peaceful environment, they carried themselves as if danger might appear at any moment. In the command center, Captain Chen displayed detailed scans of the devourers on the main view screen. "They appear as darkness because they absorb all forms of energy. Light, radiation, everything," she explained. "They're actually a collective of billions of microscopic organisms functioning as a single entity. They consume matter, convert it to energy, and use that energy to reproduce." "Why have they come to our region of space?" asked Admiral Vexala. Commander Reyes, Chen's second-in-command, answered with blunt honesty. "Your Concord represents an abundant food source with minimal defensive capabilities. You're an ideal target." Minister Lith bristled at the assessment, but Admiral Vexala raised a hand to prevent his protest. "The commander speaks only truth, however uncomfortable." "What do you propose, Captain Chen?" Captain Chen stepped forward. "The Prometheus carries weapons specifically designed to combat the Devourers. We can help you defend your worlds while teaching your crews how to fight them effectively." "And what does Earth want in return?" Minister Lith asked skeptically. "In our experience, no species offers assistance without expecting compensation. Earth wants peaceful relations and eventual trade," Captain Chen replied. "We're explorers by nature, but our history taught us to protect ourselves first. Your Concord possesses scientific and cultural knowledge we lack. We can learn from each other." The Concord Council debated for hours after meeting the humans. Some trusted Captain Chen's offer, while others feared these war-ready humans might prove more dangerous than the Devourers themselves. "We should see their ship," Admiral Vexala suggested. "It might tell us more about their true nature than their words alone." Captain Chen agreed to show them the Prometheus. What Admiral Vexala and Minister Lith witnessed both impressed and disturbed them. Every corridor could be sealed and pressurized independently. Every critical system had multiple redundancies. The weapons control center housed technology the Concord had never imagined possible. Yet most surprising was the crew, disciplined but friendly, serious yet capable of warmth and humor. "Your entire vessel is designed for combat," Minister Lith observed as they toured the engine room. "For defense," corrected the human engineer, a woman named Torres. "There's a crucial difference. We build these ships hoping never to use their weapons, but prepared to do so if necessary." In the ship's database, given limited access by Captain Chen, Admiral Vexala discovered human history. It was filled with conflict, war, and near-extinction events, but also with remarkable art, stirring music, and an insatiable drive to explore. These humans had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times, yet always stepped back from the precipice. As they returned to the station, alarms blared throughout the complex. On the main monitor, a dark mass moved toward a small Concord outpost. "The Devourers are attacking Helios outpost," reported a Concord officer. Captain Chen turned to Admiral Vexala. "Let us help you. The Prometheus can be ready in 5 minutes." Admiral Vexala hesitated only briefly. "Very well, but I'm coming with you." As the humans rushed back to their ship, Minister Lith caught Captain Chen's arm. "Why did Earth really send you? Just one ship against such a vast threat?" Captain Chen's expression grew solemn. "Earth has been observing from afar. We needed to determine if your Concord was worth saving, if you would fight for yourselves with our guidance, or simply surrender to fate. And your decision." Captain Chen's lips curved into a slight smile. "I believe we're about to find out. The battle and aftermath." Again, Commander Reyes shouted, faster this time. Concord crew members scrambled across the bridge of their vessel, the Luminous, their movements improving but still too deliberate. On the main view screen, a simulated Devourer attack played out. The Concord ship was destroyed for the 6th time that day. "In an actual engagement, you'd all be dead," Commander Reyes stated. Her tone wasn't unkind, but it brooked no argument. "The Devourers won't pause while you consult your operation manuals." A young Etherian officer named Tella slumped at his station. "Our vessels were never intended for combat. We're explorers and diplomats, not warriors." Commander Rice approached him. "My great-grandfather was a teacher before Earth's first extraterrestrial conflict. He learned to fight because survival demanded it. You can too." Aboard the Prometheus, Admiral Vexala observed Captain Chen reviewing tactical simulations. The human moved with efficient precision, something rarely witnessed in the typically contemplative Concord. "Your crew trains as if conflict is imminent," Admiral Vexala noted. Captain Chen nodded without looking up from her display. "On Earth, we have a saying: hope for peace, prepare for war. We train relentlessly so we don't have to utilize that training in reality." "And how frequently does that philosophy succeed?" Vexala inquired. Captain Chen's smile contained no humor. "Not as often as we prefer." In the science laboratory, Minister Lith worked alongside the human science team. He had never encountered such advanced weapons technology, yet noticed their medical and energy sustainability systems seemed less developed than Concord standards. "Your species prioritized different evolutionary paths than ours," the human chief scientist explained. "We had to protect ourselves from each other before we reached the stars. Your Concord achieved unity earlier in your development." Lith studied a containment field holding a Devourer sample the humans had preserved. "These organisms consume everything: metals, organics, even radiation. That's what makes them so dangerous. They don't negotiate. They don't feel compassion." The scientist agreed. "They simply consume." After 2 weeks of intensive training, Captain Chen called an emergency meeting with the Concord leadership. 5 colony worlds had ceased all communications. The Devourers were expanding their territory faster than predicted. "They're not attacking random targets," she explained, pointing to a galactic map. "They're gathering specific resources in a pattern." "What pattern?" asked Admiral Vexala. Commander Rice highlighted several sectors on the map. "They're collecting particular elements and compounds, the kind used to construct large-scale structures." "What are they building?" Minister Lith asked, feeling the chill of apprehension. Captain Chen's expression darkened. We believe they're constructing what we call a nexus gate, a structure that can generate wormholes to bring more of their kind from distant galaxies. If they succeed, this entire sector of space will be consumed within a standard year. The council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Until now, the Concord Council had only approved defensive measures. Many still feared the humans and their martial technology. We need to launch a preemptive strike, Captain Chen stated firmly. The Prometheus can lead an assault, but we need your ships too. Elder Kimura shook his head. Our people are unprepared for offensive action. Perhaps we should evacuate core worlds and fortify our inner systems. Commander Reyes struck the table with her palm. That strategy plays directly into their pattern. While you retreat, they grow stronger. Each world they consume provides more resources for their nexus gate. The debate intensified until Admiral Vexala rose to her feet. I have served aboard the Prometheus, she said. I've observed how these humans operate. They don't glorify conflict. They respect its terrible cost. But they're correct about one crucial fact. We cannot hide from this threat. She turned to Captain Chen. How many Concord vessels would you require? At least 5 with fully trained crews willing to engage, Chen answered. We can equip them with modified versions of our defensive systems. Elder Kimura looked troubled. And if I refuse? Captain Chen met his gaze steadily. Then the Prometheus will fight alone. We'll do everything in our power, but I won't deceive you. It won't be sufficient. Minister Lith spoke up. The humans could have observed from a distance as the Devourers destroyed us, then faced a weakened enemy. Instead, they came to offer assistance. Silence descended upon the chamber again. Finally, Elder Kimura nodded reluctantly. You shall have your vessels, captain and crews who volunteer for this mission. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Vexala voiced the question many were thinking. Can we truly prevail against such overwhelming odds? Captain Chen looked at her directly. I don't know, but I do know that the Devourers have never encountered humans and the Concord working in unison. That might just make the difference. The Prometheus emerged from FTL travel near Ethos Prime, the gleaming jewel of the Concord civilization. 5 Concord vessels, the Luminous, the Dawn Seeker, the Harmony, the Stellar Wind, and the Boundless, formed a protective formation around it. Their once smooth hulls now bore human weapon systems that looked oddly incongruous on the elegant craft. Scanners active, reported Officer Tella from his station on the Luminous. His movements were quick and assured now, after weeks of training with Commander Reyes. Admiral Vexala stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching as Captain Chen calmly issued orders. The human crew moved with practiced efficiency, each person performing their duties with precision. Ethos Prime on visual, announced the tactical officer. The main view screen displayed the Concord homeworld, a beautiful blue-green sphere with 3 small moons. A translucent energy shield enveloped the planet, and surrounding that shield was darkness, a massive Devourer swarm that pulsed and shifted like a living nightmare. Devourer concentration much higher than projected, Captain Chen stated grimly. Largest cluster we've ever encountered. Minister Lith, who had insisted on joining the mission despite the dangers, analyzed the sensor readings from his station. The planetary shield is at 42% capacity. It will fail within hours. Any response to our communications? Asked Admiral Vexala. A communications officer shook her head. Only automated distress signals. Captain Chen turned to Admiral Vexala. We need to divide their forces, create confusion within the collective organism. The plan was dangerous but straightforward. The Prometheus would approach Ethos Prime directly, drawing a portion of the swarm away. The 5 Concord ships would circle around and attack from multiple vectors, creating disruption throughout the Devourer collective. Remember your training, Commander Reyes told the Concord crews over the comm. Maintain constant movement. Don't allow them to surround your vessels. Target the concentration points we identified. The Prometheus advanced, its weapons systems fully charged. The ship seemed to transform, like a predator sensing combat. All forward batteries, fire at will, Captain Chen commanded. Concentrated beams of intense blue energy erupted from the Prometheus, slicing into the darkness. Portions of the swarm detached, moving toward the human ship. They're responding as anticipated, Captain Chen reported. Concord vessels, commence your approach. The Luminous and its sister ships moved into position. Their crews were apprehensive but prepared. When Commander Reyes gave the signal, they fired their newly installed weapons into the swarm. For the first time, the people of the Concord witnessed how humans fought. The Prometheus didn't simply attack, it danced. It spun and twisted between concentrations of devourers, never remaining stationary, always firing with deadly accuracy. The human weapons tore through the darkness, creating momentary rifts in the swarm. They're dispersing. Officer Tella exclaimed. The strategy is working. On the Dawn Seeker, the captain observed in awe as the human ship engaged creatures that had terrorized the Concord for months. They fight as if they've trained for this specific threat their entire existence, he marveled. The Concord ships followed the Prometheus's example, maintaining constant movement while firing. Their execution wasn't flawless, their maneuvers less fluid, their timing occasionally off, but they were fighting back effectively. After 2 hours of sustained battle, a path opened to the planet's surface. Captain Chen dispatched a team to the ground, led by Security Chief Katri. Admiral Vexella insisted that a Concord medical specialist, Dr. Nemmer, join them. The team found survivors in underground shelters. The planetary governor, an elderly Tretian named Jorith, greeted them with astonishment. We believed no assistance would arrive, she said, her voice hoarse from days of giving orders in the emergency bunkers. The darkness surrounds us, consuming everything. Our buildings, our technology, even the soil itself. Security Chief Katri assessed the planet's defenses while Dr. Nemmer treated the injured. What they discovered was deeply troubling. The Devourers aren't destroying indiscriminately, Chatri reported back to the Prometheus. They're selecting specific materials and ignoring others. It's methodical harvesting. Dr. Nemmer found something even more disturbing. Some survivors had witnessed Devourers collecting undamaged Concord vessels instead of consuming them, transporting them somewhere. In space, the battle continued relentlessly. The swarm was weakening but not retreating. They seemed to be protecting something. They're shielding a specific region, Captain Chen realized. She ordered comprehensive scans of the far side of the planet. What they discovered confirmed their worst fears. A massive structure was taking form in orbit around Ethos Prime. The Nexus Gate was already partially constructed, using materials harvested from the planet and from captured Concord ships. They're not just consuming, Admiral Vexala said, her voice hollow with dread. They're building. Captain Chen nodded grimly. And we need to destroy it before it's activated. The final assault was planned meticulously. The Concord ships would create a diversion, drawing the remaining Devourers away from the Nexus Gate. Meanwhile, the Prometheus would approach the structure and deploy specialized charges designed to destabilize it. This will be dangerous, Captain Chen told her crew. We'll be exposed and vulnerable during the approach. The Luminous led the Concord vessels in their diversionary attack. Officer Tella, now functioning as tactical commander, coordinated their movements with growing confidence. The ships performed intricate maneuvers, firing in synchronized patterns that confused the Devourer swarm. The Prometheus slipped through the chaos, approaching the massive ring structure that was nearly 80% complete. As they neared their target, sensors detected a massive energy buildup. They're initiating the gate, reported the science officer. It's becoming active. Captain Chen made an immediate decision. We don't have time to plant the charges. Prepare for direct impact. All crew to evacuation shuttles. Admiral Vexala stared at her in shock. You're going to ram the Prometheus into the gate. Matter-antimatter detonation on impact, Chen confirmed. It's the only way to ensure complete destruction of the structure. I'll remain with you, Vexilla stated firmly. Chen shook her head. Your people need you, Admiral. This is our fight. As the evacuation proceeded, Captain Chen set the final course. The Prometheus accelerated toward the Nexus Gate, its engines pushed beyond safe limits. The Concorde ships retrieved the evacuation shuttles, pulling back to a safe distance. On the Luminous, Officer Tella watched the view screen as the human warship streaked toward the massive structure. The impact was blinding. For a moment, it seemed as if a new star had been born in orbit around Ethos Prime. When the light faded, the Nexus Gate was gone. So was the Prometheus. The Devourer swarm, suddenly disorganized, began to disperse and retreat. 1 month later, the Concorde Grand Assembly convened again. Admiral Vexala, now bearing new insignia reflecting her wartime service, addressed the Council. The remains of the Devourer swarm have been tracked to the outer reaches of our territory. They continue to retreat, she reported. Cleanup and reconstruction efforts proceed on all affected worlds. Elder Kimura nodded in satisfaction. And what of our human allies? A communication was received yesterday, Admiral Vexala replied. An Earth fleet will arrive within 2 standard weeks. They've offered technical assistance and defensive training for all Concorde worlds. Minister Lith, who had been quiet throughout the proceedings, finally spoke. Before she launched the final attack, Captain Chen told me something I've been considering ever since. When I asked why Earth had sent just 1 ship, she said, "Sometimes you need to see if someone will fight for themselves before you commit to fighting for them." The council chamber fell silent as the implications settled over them. They were testing us. Admiral Vexilla confirmed, and apparently, we passed. Elder Kimura looked troubled. These humans, with their history of conflict and their warships, can we trust them as allies? Admiral Vexilla considered the question carefully. The crew of the Prometheus could have abandoned us to our fate. Instead, they gave their lives to save ours. I believe we can trust them, not because they are perfect, but because they understand the value of peace precisely because they know the cost of war. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Vexilla looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's transparent dome. Somewhere out there, more human ships were coming. The Galactic Concorde would never be the same, but perhaps it would be stronger. The age of innocence had ended, but an age of resilience had begun. A single human warship had stood against the darkness, and won, and in doing so, had changed everything.